Well, hello, everybody. I'm Ed Parcaut here with Brian Galke, or as other people
Everybody,
say, Gulk.
gulp. Yep.
You're clearing your
Look,
throat.
20 years,
Gulk.
nobody can get it right. Yeah, I've given
Yeah,
up. I've given up.
that's okay. I do my best at rubbing in people's faces all the time. So, how
Hey,
you
man,
been? How's
good.
weather?
You
You
man,
know, I've
crazy
been.
weather in Texas.
Yeah. Let's see. I came to work on Monday so I could have a day off.
There you go. I think we got the rain for that you guys had. So yesterday was rain, then sunny, then rainy again, then back and forth. So, but
Yeah.
today it's beautiful out. It's in the 70s. So back to the normal Texas heat.
Yeah, we're gonna be in the 80s next week.
Are you really?
Yeah,
I think
but
we'll
no
get there pretty
humidity.
quick.
Yeah, I
Oh,
want to warm up my
that's the big
pool just a
bonus.
little bit more so I can be in it because 61's a little cold unless I'm doing cold plunges. So
I need to get back to that. I got away from doing the cold shower. So, it's actually 92 out today. So, yeah, just a little bit warmer.
all right.
So,
Well, I'm glad everybody's here on a Tuesday with us.
yes. So, all right. What we're going to be talking about today is what?
I'm just like, what are we talking about today? Cold calling or something? What are we talking about?
Cold calling. So, what is cold calling? It's cold calling was introduced is to introduce products or services and generate interest in
Really?
people.
I can tell you what it's for. Have you ever
Yeah.
cold called in your life?
I have, but very rarely.
Well,
So, yes.
all right. So let's back up. So cold calling is when you call somebody. Turn my volume down on your side, will you? A little bit. I'm hearing it back. Cold calling for me was when I first got in the real estate industry, and then in the computer industry, we would call people about, cold calling means they have no idea who you are at all, period. Right. And that's the difference where, and I want to get a lot of people want to know, hey, so when did cold calling start? When was the first one done? And don't say, oh, when Alexander Graham Bell created the phone.
Right. So when was it?
It was in 1870s. When John Patterson, the founder of National Cash Register Company, used it to, start solicit their, because think about it, they couldn't drive places, right? It'd take forever to get there.
Yep.
And so, I'm sorry, I'm hearing like a reverb on my side.
I don't know. I'm not doing the same I always do.
I know. Just turn your volume down a little bit more.
We need a little bit more. I still gotta be able to hear you.
Oh, it's not important. Get headphones. All right, and it's the same thing. I mean, picking up the phone and calling somebody is so much easier. And I think it's got to be really hard back then to call a lot of places, but the places they needed to call were stores, right? That needed their cash register. And they were like, what's a cash register? They had no idea. So those places most people went to that had a phone, right? They go to the general store to call somebody. They didn't have phones at their house. That's what's so weird about 1870s, right?
Well, my dad grew up in a small town, Nebraska, and they had a party line. So depending on how it rung, determined who the call was coming in for.
Right. No, we had that as a kid too when we lived in Colorado.
Oh, did you really?
Oh yeah, we were freaking in the middle of nowhere. So of course they had third party line. You'd be listening to people's conversations. Get off the line. Yeah.
It's so funny to watch. I saw something like a commercial or an ad for people with the cords on the old phone, like how you get the one so you could kind of stretch across your whole living room.
Yeah,
when you're on the phone. Yeah, and kids just don't get any of that. But anyway.
No, we actually, when we bought our cabin 7 years ago, it still had a phone on the wall along with that long cord. We're like, we're leaving that.
That's funny. A relic.
Yeah. But then it lasted about 6 months, and I put it because I didn't want to have to run to that phone to pick it up because we had no cell coverage up there. But cold calling, this is my bread and butter of my industry for everything we've done for as long as I've been in sales. I don't like it. I remember when we first were doing it, they'd say, okay, change the acronym from cold to gold, and that'll make it so much easier. No, it doesn't make it.
No, it doesn't.
It takes a unique individual to be able to take that much abuse.
Right. And that's what it talks about. That's the most challenging thing is that initial picking up the phone and doing it. People have fear of rejection, and it's just part of life as kids. If you're rejected from something, it's like a shot in the heart, right? And so people are afraid of doing that even over the phone, which is kind of funny, but that is the number one reason why it's a high paying profession, because so few people will do it. And so you have a lot of these high commission jobs, selling insurance, you name it. Cold calling is something, it's a skill that pays if you learn how to do it. You asked me earlier, have I ever done it? I was a technical recruiter for about 6 months, and we would have to cold call companies to try and get leads, and then cold call people as soon as they posted something on monster.com and try and get them on our, on our bench, and then get them jobs otherwise. And it was not the thing for me. And so the last 20 years, very rarely have I had to do cold calls. I was an account manager where I dealt with pre-existing customers. And so it was more just keeping in touch with people than cold calling. So yeah, it's still something that even to this day, I have hesitancy if I have to make any calls to someone I don't know.
Well, most people have hesitancy this day to call a prospect who actually called in and asked them for information.
Yes.
Yeah, I need information. They don't get anybody calling them back, and that's just, or anybody answering the phones these days. If you answer the phone, it's amazing how many people you'll get, and that's what I don't understand. I mean, our company, we're set up, yes, if you have a receptionist who's there and answers the phone 9 times out of 10, they're not going to do a great job. So we hire another company who handles all that for us, and that company, and they're amazing, so much amazing. I get such compliments on my front desk.
Oh, there you go. Outsource it, huh?
Yeah, it's so much, because then only the things that you need really come to you. Because think about how many BS calls you get a day at selling to us the same thing we're doing to other people. So
and to your point, if it's an unknown number, it goes to voicemail. I'll check. If they leave a voicemail, then I may call them back. Chances are I'm not going to.
Well, that's why we have a landline at home. I mean, we have to have it because the Comcast, you get a deal with it. No phone attached to it, nothing there. So if I'm going to leave a number for something I just want some information on, they get the house number, and they'll never get anybody. You can't leave a message. You can't do anything. Yeah, I'm a horrible guy, but get rid.
It happens.
In this day and age, you really shouldn't be. I want to say, you really shouldn't be cold calling people from the beginning.
Right.
You want to get it set up to where it's more of a warmer call. I'm sure there's the door to door. I mean, just this weekend, some people tried to walk up our driveway while I was working outside in the garage and everything. It's like, no, thank you. Have a great day.
Yeah. It's a tough job.
I don't need that thing that you're going to try to tell me I need.
Right. Well, and that's, we talked about earlier, in January, I went to door con, and it's literally all the people who go knocking doors. And that's a tough thing, because not only do you get rejection, then you got to walk to the next house and walk to the next house. And it's such a competition, because what they're selling, somebody may have already been there just recently. But so what are some of the steps?
I don't understand. I only understand knocking boots. So I don't understand knocking doors.
Knocking doors. All right. Well, what we thought we'd get to with cold calling today is what are some of the tips that they have from the profession. And then the first one is, if you have the capability, researching your project or your prospects, right? So is there anything you can figure out about them? Have you gone to their website? Have you looked them up on LinkedIn, social media, you name it? Try and get an idea of who they are, so you feel like you're talking to a friend versus just calling someone out of the blue. Now, there's some of those that you can't do this with, because it's literally dialing for dollars, where you have to make 100 calls an hour or whatever it is, 100 calls a day, and you don't have that luxury. But if you do, and you have the ability to research it, that's the first step, right?
Well, see, and I don't know, because we're going to have somebody on Thursday talking about cold calling, because he says that's what he does on Monday. Well, again, to me, a cold call is somebody who has no idea who you are and has never called in. And I think a lot of people think that when they're calling prospects they never got a hold of, that it's a cold call. I think it's still under the whole initial phase of how many times you have to attempt to talk to somebody, right?
Yes.
I remember in my industry for years, we sold by the phone only. So let me go back up a little bit. So for about 6 months, I worked for a small business company who sold insurance to them. I won't say the names, Blue Shield, out of Thousand Oaks. And I was in that. I had to make these types of calls. They had called in before, but I was talking to them. And then I got to actually learn the tones and inflections in people's voices to hear what they really were saying. Right. And over time you learn this, and that's how I hone my skill to where today, when I talk to somebody, I can hear what's going on in the background. I can hear them, but I also can connect with them by hearing what's in the background. Most people don't take the time to connect. And like you're saying about researching them, that's so important. Even if it's a prospect today that called into you, you should be finding out who they are and everything about it before you call them back. But you can't spend a half hour on that, because then you're wasting time because you don't want to call them. That's your problem. Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm cutting in. I'm just trying to bring my background that this everybody hates this to a certain point. The unique individual who likes this, there's a reason they like this. I don't know what it is.
Right.
There's a reason.
It's something you have to be comfortable with doing, right? It takes a certain personality. Some people are only face-to-face people. Some are, look, I worked retail where people have to come to you. It's a lot easier to make a sale than it is to reach out to people. And again, that's why a lot of these are zero salary, but high commissions. And there's a guy to follow, Jeremy Miner, and he does a good job talking about cold calling, what to say in scripts. And the reason I bring that up is that's step number 2 is, do you have a script? So while you don't want to sound robotic when you're talking to them, you have to know what you're going to say, or else you're going to end up saying, so, and fumbling around. So memorize what you're going to say, at least. So one of the guys we know, he teaches, you have to know your first 90 seconds, right? It's always the same thing. Then you can adjust after that. But
right.
To get
you're talking on stage.
Yeah.
You're talking about talking on stage.
Right. But it can be anything, right? You have to know your script of what you're going to say, or else you'll get stuck in your own head.
Now, what I do to mess up people is when I call people, I tell them who I am and who I'm looking to talk to first.
Right.
Right. Most people call an office and say, is so-and-so there? Then they get the defensive, like, what are you calling? Whereas I'm saying, hey, this is Ed Parcaut. I'm with Bubba, and I'm calling so-and-so, and they're like, who are you again? You know what I mean? Because I already told them who I am. So they think that I know everybody because I'm telling them who I am. And it just makes it so much easier.
Well, there you go. So what's step number 3? Practice your pitch, right? So it's natural and confident. You get used to saying it over and over and over again.
Right. Well, you need to know what you're talking about in the first place. You need to practice it. I mean, here's a prime example. Love the guys help me with my radio show, but his ins and outs are not the smoothest because he's doing it the way I did it for a few years, which is show up and just read, talk about everything else, but your ins and out, you just halfway go through. Right. But you really need to practice that so you're much smoother. And he's getting it, but it just takes time.
Yeah.
But back to your statement, because I looked, when you're talking about gathering information, I looked over here when I had done some stuff over here. They're like, gather intelligence ahead of time. I'm like, oh, I'm a spy now.
That's right. Hey, it's all in phrasing, right? I'm not a cashier. I'm a transaction financial.
Well, what got me into what I was telling you about what I did, because over here it says, it is important to introduce yourself quickly and respectfully, right? And that's where you get to who you are, why you're calling, and can I talk to somebody, right? But a lot of people are like, is the business owner there?
Yeah,
no.
Is the decision maker available?
No.
As soon as you hear that, that's the thing is, unfortunately, because telemarketing was a thing back in the 80s and 90s, right? It just has such a negative connotation that when anybody calls, you immediately start getting on the defensive. What do you want? Why are you calling?
Yeah. Well, it's like, Rob Onspach and all his stuff he talks about, how he does what he does when people call him. He's the only guy I know that actually answers these calls, and my wife, just to mess with them. And to me, it's like, why, don't bother me. I'm at dinner. All right, give me your phone number for your cell and I'll call you back when I'm done.
Yeah.
No.
What? No, I can't do that. Yeah. I had somebody call me the other day. Are you I'm like, yeah. And they're like, well, we need to talk to you about somebody else who did this. I'm like, I wasn't there. Why are you talking to me about it? It's just funny.
It's like, people call you, and like I had somebody who's like, I'm not going to say her name, but your ex-wife, one of them, because I have, had you as a reference. I'm like, no, she didn't. Yeah. Oh, yes, she did. No, she didn't. I haven't spoken to her in over 20 years. There is no way she used me as a reference. Oh, you're okay. Bye. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's got to be worse when those people are calling. So cold calls would be collection services, right? Yes. And that's who calls a lot, trying to find, so that now they can go online, find people who are connected to somebody, see if they can get a hold of them to get the information, right?
Oh, there was a documentary I watched one time, and I don't remember what it was on, but it was on the big debt collection agency, and they would talk about, it's gonna be embarrassing when I call your parents and your friends and they find out you're a deadbeat. I was just like, wow, it used to be really aggressive back in the day.
There still are so much that I had an attorney friend of mine who he was helping somebody else out, and he's like, oh man, they got me so upset. And this, I'm like, okay, Bob, this is their job. Their job is to get some type of emotional out of you, whether that's pissed off, crying, you name it. Their goal is to get you to react some way so that you pay them to go away. That's exactly their job. And he's like, I go, so that's what they're doing. So when they're doing it to you, you need to do it exactly back to them. And I tell all my clients, if you ever talk to them, be the best best actress or actor in the drama series, you can.
Yes. Well, and they start off with the intimidation factor. Oh, this call is being recorded. Good. What are we going to talk about?
Yeah. Can I have a copy of it when we're done?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, they all do that so they can record. So that's part of, like we had last week, Go High Level, is when they call through a certain system, they say that so it can be recorded for future, so they can go back to it. And the one thing I liked about Go High Level, besides the founder who was on last week, Robin Alex.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Wait,
hey,
now
I'm
you got me
last weekend. It's still Tuesday and I'm still tired. It's important, that whole thing, understanding that you can go back to a call, make sure what you said to the person when you're calling them back. I know this is not cold calling, but this is following up of a cold call to a prospect or whatever. That's why it's so important to have those phone calls recorded so you can go back to them.
Right.
All right. So when's the best time to call? Do you have that on there?
No, I don't have that one.
Research shows the best time to make cold calls is between 10 and 11 a.m. or 2 p.m. And you'll have a 16 and or 15% chance of prospectors that are actually answering the phone calls. That's what I said.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking in the 4-hour work week, one of the things that Tim Ferriss listed is what made him successful was by calling really early in the morning from like 7 to 8:30, and then calling after 5 o'clock, because the gatekeepers tended to not be there, but the leadership was.
Right. But eight,
it was interesting.
That's before 8. Call 8 people before 8 a.m. and you'll have 8 before 8. 8 before 8. Call 8.
Gotcha.
Yeah, you're getting a little problem 8 there. Huh? Yeah. Are you caught up?
I was running the speed test. It's yeah, it says it's there.
Oh, so much for that new computer you got.
Yeah, sometimes faster, sometimes slower. All right, let's say you get a hold of somebody, right? What do you do then? And one of the pieces of advice was, instead of focusing on the features, right? What are the benefits of the product? What are they going to walk away with? So there's always the you don't sell the sizzle, you sell the steak, right? So they don't care how you cook it, right? But it's, what are they looking for? What are they hungry for, right?
I actually care how you cook my steak. I'm sorry, I'm one of those guys.
I grew up with parents who everything is well done. I'm just like, yeah. After working in a steakhouse, I'm like, you're ruining it.
Well, I do and this is off subject, but I do a lot with ribeye caps, which are, if you've ever had them, they're like so tender. But what I've been they're like the most tender, and and Costco sells them with prime. They cut them with prime, ribeye, and it's really amazing. If you try them. If you ever go to Costco or can get them, they're really amazing. Well, I've learned that if you smoke a steak for about an hour, it gets as tender as a ribeye, the same way. Yeah, that's just me. That's just what I played with, because my wife says I know how to handle my meat. So it's important for me to make sure that, because we do a lot of tri-tip, right? And I'll smoke a tri-tip for 4 hours, and that thing is just amazing. So, and I'm not trying to brag. It's just, if you're going to cook and eat and do something, do it right. Don't kill it. Yeah.
Well, that's the best thing. I mean, when I started grilling, you get it kind of down based on what type of steak and everything else it is. But I went to a buddy's house, and then he's a Polish guy, and he always the food that they have spread wise is amazing. But man, they cooked some steak this weekend that was really, really good, or last weekend. But anyway, back to what you were talking about earlier is because you know what you're going to say, you've been through your script, you actually listen not just to what they're saying, but what's going on in the background. That was step number 5, is listen carefully to what they're saying, not just waiting for your chance to respond.
Right.
And that's a huge one. It's so annoying when somebody's calling you tell them what you need, and then they're just pushing what their agenda is instead of what your need. They're not listening to you, right? It just drives me up the wall.
Yeah. I mean, because they're focused on one thing. Let me know, and I've been known to do this occasionally, which is talk over somebody when I wasn't really listening. Yeah. Or vice versa. I don't want to hear it. Sometimes the delay just messes us up on this thing. You think the person stopped, but then they didn't. Right. And then, sorry, apologize. But it's so true when you're having a conversation with somebody and I'll go round and round in a circle, right? Saying the same thing over and over again. It's not like 3 words, it's multiple words, but I come back through the whole story and keep it so that they understand it. And I think it's so important to know what you're trying to get across to them. And, it's just like my book, the way it's set up is the same way I talk and sell. Is this, And I had when I sold years ago, when we sold 47 different states, we had, in the 90s, we were some of the first people to have call centers, right? Before it was a big thing. And we'd have, 50 guys in a room, and I know exactly when the phone calls would start picking up, because when the mail hit and people got home in these states, and they'd be there to pick up those calls and go through them. And you need to know certain things. And when you're talking to them, well, these people were calling in off of a piece of paper, we weren't calling them, but some people would take the same time, and this is again in the 90s, and they would call those people and say, hey, you have a VA rate or whatever it was, right? And they would go out and go that way. I preferred the call me and then I call you back, right? Back in the day, that was the power. They called it the power. Whoever initiated the call had the power of the conversation.
Never heard that before.
Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of times you would, because a lot of people, I want to get them right now. Great. But they're on their thing. It's disrupting what people expect to go a certain way. That's why the whole thing about when I call, no matter who I'm calling, office or whatever, I say who I am first. Right. Instead of asking for who it is.
Someone just did a post about that of, can I have 2 seconds of your time? Or, hey, I'm just checking in, not to say that. It's phrases and things not to say whenever you originally get a hold of somebody.
What I hate is when you're walking, they're like, can I ask you a question? You just did.
Yeah. Yeah. I was leaving the grocery store, and I feel bad for the people, they're outside trying to do
Next
something.
time, say, can I ask you a couple questions?
Exactly.
Don't say, can I ask you a question? You just did. Goodbye.
Right. Can I have a minute of your time? There's different ways to say it, but yes.
Yeah.
But that's a good point.
It's important. Huh? Yeah. What do you got there?
Oh, following up.
Oh,
like you were talking about before.
Right. But that's, again, if you're, the difference between an actual cold call is, some of these could be a lead they think is a cold call. They never heard from you, right? But they want information on properties. Like a lot of real estate agents deal with this, where people inquired about a property and then Zillow or someplace sells them the lead. So truly, they are still a cold call. It's not like they're warm introduction, like, oh, by the way, you want to speak to Ed Parcaut, and here is this number, and so-and-so referred me. Those are the,
Well, that's the interesting thing right now, right? So much of this has changed. You can get on the do not call list. If you go and you email people that didn't subscribe to your stuff, you can actually be fined for it, right? Cold calling.
Same with texting, right?
What? Yeah, texting. That's why you don't get as many texting campaigns anymore. It used to be everybody had you opt in for texting, but like you said, email, texting, all that now comes with fines. And the same thing, if you're on the do not call list and you didn't click on somebody and somebody calls you can turn them in and they can be fined for it. So it's gotten to that point where it was so overdone, but for so many different areas that ended up going into legislation of what can happen now. I think in Europe, it got really tight for a while on emails. That if you were just blind, if you bought somebody else's list and you shot them an email, you'd have to show proof of how you got their information. It's crazy.
Because I mean, I'm going to go way back. So back in the day when people had actual fax machines, and that's how this all started, because people would fax to them an offer and they're like, you're just cost me money. Right. So what it did when it was electronic email, it took forever for that to pass because they couldn't show it cost you really money. Right. Because you could just ignore it.
Well, that's just it, like I do half of my stuff.
Yeah, it's just different. Right. You're single. That's how it is.
Well, I just go look at the email, I'm like, delete. And I swear I hit unsubscribe, and that's like a trick where they're like, he's alive. He opened it.
Yeah, that's actually what they want you to do. Just block them.
Yep.
Yeah, because I have certain companies who, hey, and there's two top lenders. I deal with one of them who only do wholesale. There's another one, I won't say their name, and they're notorious for calling you to try to get you to sign up with them. And it's like, I don't want to deal with you at all.
Yeah.
Anyway.
You were talking earlier about the 8 before 8, everything else. So that's one of the other steps is make sure, are you tracking your results? Do you know how many, calls did you make? How many people answered? How many converted?
You know how you can do this?
Is it in Go High Level?
Oh, man.
I figured you were going to say that. But you're right. That's the whole thing. It used to be, now, of course, this was back 24 years ago, but when I was a technical recruiter, we had a box that we had to turn in every day showing how many calls we made. And of course, you had to do different little signs for, did somebody answer? Yes, no. But that's how they tracked everything. It was like the movie Boiler Room. All we had 30 minutes of internet access to find the leads and the contact information. We had to make phone calls all day. So that was an important part of what was tracking.
Same thing for me, but it was Glengarry Glen Ross.
So, yeah. You had the leads.
We did. These are not good leads. I want the Glengarry leads. Yeah. You can't have them.
I think you like that movie since you quoted quite a bit.
Yeah. Put down that coffee. It's for closers. Coffee's for closers.
What? And everybody knows it is.
I keep bringing my coffee cup in this.
Yeah, I saw. I have one that when you flip it up, it's got a middle finger off the at the bottom of it.
Oh, okay.
Have a nice day until you flip it up.
Gotcha.
So cold calling, everybody knows it's a numbers game. That's what we're talking about. You have to have thick skin to be in sales to begin with, but especially when it comes to cold calling. I don't care if you're swinging by somebody's office. You know, a lot of people walk right past the no soliciting signs. You're calling people. You just know you're never going to catch everybody in a good mood all the time. It's going to be a lot of no's. Who are you? Hanging up, you name it. And you just have to know going in, every no leads to a future yes. But it's hard. When you have those down days, I mean, there'd be times it just was crap. And I'd have to get up and go walk around and come back and start again because it can get to you after a while.
Dude, all it is like dating. Yeah. So you got to figure out your numbers. All right, I got to get to 10. So I get one yes out of so many no's. You need to get to that. A friend of mine would stand by the girls' bathroom at clubs because he knew they all had to come there at one point, and he could eventually get somebody by standing there long enough. Yeah, you call that a creep today, but that's how it worked back in the day. But same thing.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead. I'll tell a story after yours.
All right. So, I mean, it's important to know that. So I knew a guy he would tell them thank you. And they're like, huh? Thank you for telling me no. I get 1 out of every 10 that says yes. So thank you for the no, because that just gets me closer to the yes. It's how you look at it. Yeah.
There used to be a pizza place here that was open all night, but they would stay open until 3 doing pizza. And of course, so that's where they went when the bars closed and everything. So I knew a guy who he would get off work, he'd go home and he'd take a nap from like 8 to midnight, and he'd go out at 1 o'clock to this place. And that's where he met girls at, was he'd sit there from 1 to 3 because everybody came in.
Yeah. What are you going to do?
Creativity. Yeah.
Hey, whatever works for you. It's not like you people get in at 5 a.m. or something, you know? That's just horrible.
Yeah. Oh, it's crazy. I'm telling you, there's places. I'm glad I live in a place where bars close at 2. You know, we've got a lot of them that close at midnight. I can't imagine like New Orleans, New York, Miami, where places stay open till 6, 7 o'clock in the morning. Nope.
Oh, really?
Nope.
Yeah, we don't. They close at 2 a.m. here.
Yeah, that's what most places are here. But there's a certain area, the street, that everything has to close at midnight, except for some places that were grandfathered in. So those bartenders like it because they still have a life. They can still go do stuff afterwards. But like we're talking about, the big challenge with cold calling is just picking up the phone and doing it, taking action on it. It's like everything else. I don't want to go to the gym, but once you go, you just get going. But you have to just pick it up, make yourself do it. We were talking earlier about cold plunges, taking the cold shower. I just turn it on, jump right in. Because if you start thinking about it, you make it more painful in your own mind than it is to actually be in the shower. Now, counting to 30, I can do that pretty damn fast.
Count to 30?
Yeah, so in the shower, you only have to do a 30-second cold shower versus the 3 minutes in the ice bath.
Right. So it's 3 minutes and 39 degree or less.
And trying to get through it. But anyway,
I would much rather jump in the water than jump in a cold shower.
I would too, but I don't have that here at the house. So it's the cold shower. Now, where was I in Florida when we were visiting my dad, and their shower never got that cold? I'm like, no wonder people in Florida do this all the time because the water wasn't that cold. Now going to Colorado, totally different story. So.
Yeah. Go to my cabin, 26 degrees. It'll be cold for you.
That's crazy. But yeah, I mean, so the whole point, like we're talking about with this and the cold calling, is you just have to get out and do it. It's not fun, but obviously you want to shoot for warm leads where people know you, something you can be introduced, have somebody else speak on your behalf, do an introduction. That's why people love to ask for referrals. Robin was talking about it last week, and that it was, every one of their customers, once they show them success, they said, hey, do you know 3 additional people that you think would benefit from our services? And that's how they got more referral customers. So yeah, it still is cold calling to a degree, but warm leads are a lot easier because you can say, oh, hey, Robin introduced us, Robin gave me your information, versus just calling somebody just out of the blue. Hi, how are you? You don't know if you're saying their name right. There's a lot of things to it, but sometimes you don't even know who you're reaching for, right? Like you said, you have to call and ask, who's the decision maker, who handles this, who handles that, and it's harder to do. That's why if you can do any research, that was why that was step 1 in the process.
Right, but most people call cell phones now, so you're going to be talking to the right person. And that's like when it's a referral for me, if I don't get them, I leave a message quick,
Yeah.
who I am, who told me to call them, and why am I calling? And
Right.
then, the number.
Yeah.
According to those commercials, oh, you messed up. You didn't leave it 2 times. On radio, we have to say it, and then you say it again because people start writing it down. So I do the same thing when I leave messages. But my wife makes fun of me because I go, the way I say it. She goes, "You don't have to say it like that." I'm like, I'm so used to saying it like that from on radio.
Right.
And but important here is, if most people who have prospects to call are afraid to do that in the first place, stop being afraid. This is how you make your money. You either prospect or you die. That's how it is. No company, companies can have marketing, they can have the sales department, they can have a great product, they can do everything, but nothing happens. Nobody gets paid until you sell it.
Exactly.
Period.
Yep. Yeah. Well, and that's just it. I think everybody should have to wait tables. Everybody should have to work retail. Everybody should have to cold call once in their life, because those are skills that help you in every other type of position you're ever in. Once you learn to understand people through those 3 types of employment, it's a game changer. I can tell you, when we used to work, or when I used to work for a corporation, I could tell you whoever waited tables and who never had, by the way they treated people at lunch, but that bled over to how they treated people at work. So I think everybody should have to do those 3 professions.
I never waited tables.
Well, it's never too late
on me. I'm sorry.
Never too late. All right. Anything else you want to talk about today?
No, I think that's it. It's kind of basically, I didn't want to go forever on cold calling, but it's just important. Stop worrying about it. Do what you got to do. Make a phone call, get over it, move on, say the next, just get through what you're trying to do. It's the only way to do that. Stop worrying about it. It's the same thing like we were talking about cold plunges. I could worry about it for 20 minutes, or I could just go jump in it, and in seconds you're done.
Exactly.
Right? Because you get in and then you're like, okay, that's not a big deal.
Yep.
So that, stop worrying about it. Just do what you need to do. And that's some of the people these days in a certain age range, they've never been in a difficult situation, uncomfortable, and they don't want to be.
Yes.
Well, that is the worst thing you can do for yourself in life. And I think there's a huge range of people in 10 years that need this more than anything else to help them be a better person.
Well, and we talked about this before. Look, with what you see is going on, more and more companies are talking about laying off staff and everything. These are the skills that companies look for. And you've got to get past the idea of having the perfect message and only emailing or texting. It's just not going to work anymore, even though people do it all the time, right? So you can order, dating apps, you write your perfect profile and everything else. But that's why face-to-face communication and social skills and soft skills like this are so in demand, because as we see modern technology like AI pick up, we were talking about it before. I saw somebody who was offering their copywriting class. I'm like, why would anybody still do that if you can use ChatGPT or Bard? I'm still a bigger fan of ChatGPT, but
they're trying to get you. They're trying to get you to pay them before, and then they say, "Here's your thing: ChatGPT, Bard,
Jarvis,
all the other ones. Here you go." Yeah, they go. That's what you do from now on. Thank you for your $200. I hope you enjoy the PDF.
Exactly. That's where it's headed. So, anyway, all right.
Go ahead. You were going to say something, but I don't want to go yet because I have something else to add.
Then go right ahead.
If it comes back to me. I was trying to remember, but you got off on that ChatGPT, so it kind of threw my brain off for a second. What was it? We were talking about cold calling, talking to people, getting it done, just doing
changing careers.
Forgot. Oh, I know. Remember. All right. So to this day, I always say people don't want to make a phone call. I don't care how easy it is. People don't want to make a phone call. They want to send an email. They want to send a text. This happened to me. My one of the person who handles my account for the radio show, she quit. Went to a different company.
Right.
She didn't tell me. And I was doing stuff. She didn't call me, tell me. I get that, right? If it was unplanned, but it was planned for weeks. But then the person who took it over, the sales manager didn't call me and say, "Hey, by the way, I have so-and-so, they're going to take over the account. Are you okay with that?" I get an email from this person who's taking over my account, acting like I know who they are. And they must have sent it on their phone because there was no footer of the company or anything. And they're like, "I'm so-and-so, and I'm taking over your account. You might know me. I think we've met before." I know who she is just because I got introduced to her one time and I remember that stuff. I couldn't pick her out of a lineup to tell you, but that's not what I'm getting at. What I'm getting at is they should have picked up the phone. They should have called me and told me what was going on. Leave a voicemail. I know everybody today doesn't want that. Oh, you know, this is the 21st century. You know, they make fun of people. I don't leave a voicemail. You can text that information.
Yeah.
Yes, I can. But sometimes I might have a question that I don't want to spend 20 minutes with my big thumbs texting back to you on, that I can get done in a second by talking to you.
Well, and again,
Anyway.
if you're reaching out to somebody cold, I'm going to delete your email before I'm going to read it. I mean, half the time. So that's why the calling is that much more important. We had that. I had one of my employees when he left. I did cold call all these accounts. Say, hey, he's not with us anymore. You know, the company wouldn't put up an auto. Well, I know, but I'm saying, like, I'd have to call the people that I didn't know and try and find where they were and everything. And it's not fun, but necessary evil. So.
Right. But I'm just saying, that's at least they have been doing business with your company. Right.
Yes. Yep.
A cold call. And this is why cold call is, they have no idea who you are and what you're trying to sell them.
Right. They don't know your product. They don't know your services. They don't know you.
They're knocking on your door. You know, have you taken so-and-so as your, anyway, move on.
Your lawfully wedded wife? I don't know.
No, the little black books they bring over to with you when you come to the door. It's like, that's cold calling. Right. When you come to your door, you have no idea. That's why we have ring now. We don't answer. Go away. We didn't ask you to come here. Don't disturb us. And that's how people gotten with their phones these days. Yeah. You can leave a voicemail. If they don't want you, they're not going to call you.
Exactly.
Get referred by somebody. That's the best way to do it. Have them, if they're using your marketing and they coming in, that is not, you need to call them. That's a potential prospect that can turn into a client. Don't wait. Somebody else is going to grab them. In today's world, you have, I think they said, within 3 minutes, they want to be talked to when they reply to something.
Yes.
Or 30. It could be less than that, but it's so much. And most of us have a life on top of everything else we do. So there's no way to do it. And I'm not trying to bring up go high level again, but that allows you to set up things through your company and other things that people can get contacted right away and set up things and set up appointments for you in the whole 9 yards.
That's what I was gonna say. There's software out there that as soon as somebody opens an email, you get a notification. I knew somebody that's what they did, is as soon as that email notification came in, they picked up the phone and called. Yeah, I know you got one of our emails that you just recently, took a look at, and it helped. So proximity is power.
I would have said you were you're watching me that much.
Yeah.
No, the guys coming on Thursday, they had the same thing. They know, or other people in my industry, real estate side, when they send out those things like these are this house or whatever, they know when they opened it, they know that kind of stuff. Same thing with me. I know the open rates of all my emails that go out through my CRM and everything else we do.
Right.
So it's important to know those things. All right.
It is.
That's all I had today. Kind of went a little longer.
So yeah, you brought up a good point, though. We'll have a guest on Thursday. He's going to kind of talk about how they use cold calling to get their business going.
That's right. And if anybody has any questions about that, put them in the comments below. We'll get them answered. And we'll talk to you, I guess, next week, I guess.
Yep.
No, I'm kidding.
Thursday.
We're going to talk to them on Thursday. I just mess with you. All right. Everybody make it a great day. Thank you for watching. We really appreciate you.
Yep. Thanks.